Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Guide Tech Podcast for episode 7. Today, I'm going to be your host, Garrett Shackelford, and I am joined with Logan Moe, CEO and founder of Mallard Bay. Logan, how you been, man? It's been a while.
Dude, I know. Obviously, we see each other multiple times every day for the most part, but I think it's good that we did 6 episodes in a row. So that way, now that we got like super busy and hadn't had a chance to get this done, and you also have god awful Wi-Fi. So that definitely doesn't necessarily help. But I'm glad we're back today to talk about what we're talking about. And just continuing to provide value. And I hope those that are listening, I don't know how many people are listening, and I probably should know those things. Well, it's probably good that we don't know, so we don't.
We might hurt our feelings.
Well, as long as there's more than one person, I think that's good. That'll be that's a good start. But other podcasters, like they start like a decade ago, and then they're popular today, and it's like how did everyone thinks it's an overnight success, but we're really just doing this to share value, and also for the other content that we get out of it, the short form stuff.
For sure. Yeah. So 100%. Yeah. And like you said, like it takes like starting on a foundation, kind of having a plan that we're working towards. And it's not the end of the world if it doesn't take off or become the next Joe Rogan experience. That's not part of the plan or our idea for this. But yeah, it's just solely to provide value to those that want to watch it. But yeah, like you said, we've been super busy with the off season. It seems that outfitters right now, they are, looking at how they can grow their business, and they're turning to us for help. And it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to do that. But also it's booking season for them. So that, again, takes bandwidth away from our team because we're out here focused on growing our outfitters for them. And I would say like the biggest focus for us is getting these outfitters ready for the upcoming season. This is the best time to be growing your business. But to that point, I think when it comes to growing your business, you have to have a plan and you have to have a legacy you want to leave, something that you've mapped out, where you're headed. And so I want to know from you, we talk about it a lot, like the outfitter legacy, helping them build that. I want to know what that means for an outfitter.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it applies to all aspects of business in general. I mean, the importance, and you kind of see the emphasis that I put on it here at Mallard Bay, but like painting that picture for where you want to go, and understand that it's okay that you're not there yet, but there are small changes that you can make along the way to truly build, that legacy, right? And defining what a legacy means to you, like for us, it's, we want to change the outfitted industry as a whole, right? That's the why. And for an outfitter, they may want to own, a monopoly in a particular area. Like, of course, that's like the dream of all outfitters. They want to have all the landowners, and they want to, be able to provide the best level of service among their competitors. And that's, totally fine. It's the thing that you have to do is take time to sit down and think about it. Talk to your family members, your guides, like, guys, what can we do over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years to truly own our market and own what we do, be the best at what we do, whether you're doing 5-star lodging or 5-star hunting or both, right? Ideally both, but you may not be there today. And so there are tools and things that you can use along the way. But the first thing you have to do is you have to make time for, writing down your vision for what it can become. Think about someone like Toby at Cadillac Creek is like, he had to work at it to get it to where it is today, right? He never knew that it was, when he started out, he didn't think it would be what it is today, right? And I'm sure he may have gotten there a little faster if he did have that clear vision, but, Toby's not here, so I don't know exactly. But what I would imagine is taking the application to all small businesses or all business in general, and understanding that having a clear vision and mission for what you're trying to do really just makes it clear for everybody else that's working for you, even your guides, understanding like, this is the standard of service that we want to offer. This is what we want our lodge to look like in the future. This is what, upgrades and, what having a personal chef in the future looks like, things like that. I mean, those are just examples, but I think that the time you spend thinking about it, and there's a good book, The Road Less Stupid. And it's not saying that those that don't think are stupid. It's that you can avoid stupid mistakes by spending more time thinking about the decisions you're making, right? And really contemplating them.
Yeah, and I think like here, I've gotten a good example from you on that. And I've done, Bourbon Media in the past, and that was something that like we were just so in the weeds, because when you go and get started, it can become where your day is filled, where you don't have the time to think about that stuff. So I think one of the biggest things is like, you do have, like right now is a great time to set aside that time to, if you haven't mapped out what that vivid vision is for where your business, where you want it to be, that legacy you're going to leave, the legacy you're going to leave for your family, the industry, whatever that might be, like taking the time, actually finding that time to do that. And it's not something that you probably come up with in 5 minutes, but it's something that you spend time curating. And I wanted to know, does it change over time? Does it shift? And is that okay for these guys?
Yeah. I mean, it inherently has to be adaptable, right? Like change is part of life, one, in business, two, right? I mean, you're going to go through phases of, hey, maybe we need to like think more about this and like clarify, this specific part a little bit more. Maybe you talked about it a lot for a little bit of time, and your life has changed in a certain way in which now you want your lifestyle or your income to be different. So then you've got to adapt to it. Like while it should eventually guide every single decision that you make, it's not that way from the start, right? Like it takes time and iteration and like, almost like an experiment, right? You're saying, okay, like I think this is what I want it to be now, right? And you work with that right now. And then one day you're going to wake up and be like, you know what? I really want this. I really want it to be this. Like, and it could be an even better, greater vision for it, right? So that's why you have to give yourself the freedom to change it. Because if you don't change it, you may be missing out on some really good ideas and really good clarity in your own mind on like what it is you want it to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, another thing, and I know you've said like you need to sit down and write it out, but would you have any advice to those guys? Because I think like what happens a lot with people that are the entrepreneur type mindset, it might be like, I'm sitting down having some beers with some buddies and I'm going to kick off this outfitter business, and we'll just use outfitter business for example. But this could happen anywhere where you're just sitting in the garage with your buddies watching a game and you come up with an idea and it's like, oh, I'm going to just kick off this business. I'm going to go do this. And again, you find yourself in the weeds of doing that. And it's hard to set yourself back. So I think one of the biggest things is people get this vision and this legacy and they have it in their head. They hold it up in their head. And they're not necessarily sharing it, or they're not writing it down. Do you think it makes a huge impact when you, like, if this is your goal, this is the legacy you want to set, to have that written down and to be reiterating on that, telling people that stuff? Do you think it has an impact on them reaching that goal if they're not actually writing it down and it's trapped in their mind?
Yeah. I mean, the reality of it is some people are better communicators when it comes to communicating a vision. And so the writing of it down is more of the doing approach to taking a vision and clarifying it and refining it to where it then becomes able for other people that think and operate differently and learn differently to actually understand it, right? And you may be what a personality you would call an integrator, which is a doer, right? Or you may be a visionary, but you don't know until you try to make that connection. Be like, okay, I'm going to paint the vision for you guys, and you explain it to somebody and they don't get it. Right. Well, that's an indication of, hey, like you might not be the best visionary communicator. Right. And you've had to learn how to be an integrator too. Right. It's the ideas are easy, but the proof is in the execution. Like, I mean, you've got to execute on that vision. There's got to be a step-by-step plan to get there. And you have to be able to, guide your team, your family along like, hey, this is what I see, right, in my head, but you've written it down. Right. So it has a huge impact on it. And the number one thing my dad tells entrepreneurs And what he told me at the beginning of starting a business, start to write your ideas down, because that idea that comes to you I like to think about it like this. This is a little bit like crazy, but I like to think about it like you are only offered those ideas at very specific times in your life. And if you do not write them down, there's a chance that you will not remember it. But those ideas are scheduled on a timeline, in my opinion, right? From when I think about it from a faith perspective, is like you were supposed to have that idea at that time and take action, whatever that action may be. It may just be writing it down or having some clarity around it. And it may come back to you, right? It's not always not going to come back, but that's your, hey, maybe I should write this down, writing it down, and then coming back to it later when you have more clarity of thought. But that's just the way I think about it.
No, and I think that's a great perspective on it, because I full-heartedly believe that different opportunities and an idea could be an opportunity that gets put in front of you, and God puts it in front of you when you're capable of doing it. And though it is a hefty project, like starting Mallard Bay or GuyTech or starting an outfitter is a hefty task, and there's lots of steps that go into doing that. But I think you're fully capable, and God surrounds you with people that are able to help you get to that goal, as long as you're committed to it. And it goes back to communicating that that idea that you have, that legacy that you want to reach, and that goal, because you can have that all you want, and God can bless you with that, but he's also blessed you with the ability of like two hands to work. And you can take that time to work on crafting your vision and communicating it and getting good at telling the story. And I've seen you and Joel do an excellent job at like the way that y'all, go out into investors and pitch them on this story and this legacy that we want to leave. They're buying into that legacy. They're believing in that legacy. And so y'all have done an excellent job at working on that and getting really good at it. I do like what you said about ideas, because I think, I lived a certain way where I thought every idea was a good idea. And now I have changed my perspective, and I cannot remember who the guy's name is, but he founded Apple. And he said that every idea is actually Steve Jobs. Yes, my bad. Like of all entrepreneurs, he's the one I should know. So he said something along the lines of like, every idea is a bad idea, because no matter how you write it out, no matter how you plan it or see it going, all the steps that go in the middle of the integrators, the people doing the work, the people like making it happen, all the problems that come up that you couldn't foresee happening. Outfitters are going to face that. They're going to have challenges that come up. They're going to lose employees. They're going to have clients canceled. They're going to have accident in vehicle where it, ruins their vehicle that they use to tow all their gear. The list goes on of things that could happen. But it's execution of the idea on what makes you reach that legacy. And so I want to you've done a great job at casting a vision and making changes along the way. But what is a practical way, or maybe talk about how we do it here? We map out how we get to those goals, all the way down to like a quarterly, weekly issue solving state. And I think outfitters could benefit from that, instead of saying like, I think it's the organization of execution on this goal. And I think outfitters could super benefit from structuring this within their business on how we do things, because we've taken it from other successful companies and modeled that same thing. And I think any business should have a model for doing that. So I don't know if you want to talk about it, but just how you go from a vision down to taking action in that day, because you're not going to reach that goal in one day of work.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I learned was, it's called EOS, and you and Nick were doing it at Bourbon Media, and we really were just in the process of implementing it when we acquired you guys. And so it was definitely a signal of like, hey, this is probably the right thing to do, since you guys understand it, we understand it, we were just getting started. But it's called EOS, right? Entrepreneur Operating System. There's a ton of free resources out there on YouTube about what it is, but in the most basic sense, the first step is to clarify your vision. What do you want the business to look like in 10 years? What do you want it to look like in 5 years? What are the targets and goals for revenue that you want to get to? Like, what is the lifestyle that you want this business to provide, right? Are you building a huge brand, or are you building a business in which, hey, if I can make some scratch at the end of the day by either selling it or, leaving it to my son or whatever it may be, daughter, whoever, right? Like
Right.
that's the checkpoints along the process, right? And in finding out like what are the core values of, in the first exercises, what are the core values of your outfitter? Right? Like you're taking a typically not standardized way of going about building a small business, which is an outfitter. It's not a by the book way of building a small business. Let's just be honest, right? And you're professionalizing the processes you go to make it a real, true business. Like the definition of a business in its sense is like, yes, you make money, right? Like from providing goods or services, but there's people involved in that. And those people have to be all aligned going in the same direction. And so what core values do is allow you to there's an exercise. It's very simple. Look at all your guides, put them in a room and have them each write down what they admire about other people in the room. Pick one person and what qualities, characteristics do they admire about other people in the room, right? And at the end of the day, put all the at the end of the exercise, put all the sticky notes down on the ground, and you'll see the hey, we all share this. Hey, we all believe this to be true. Like we all want God to play a huge role in what we do. Like that's how I would imagine it with Toby. Is like he wants to start every trip with a prayer. Every hunt with a prayer, right? Out in front of everybody. Like that's an example of like one of their core values is like a faith-based approach to, guiding, right? And in the camaraderie that comes along with that. And that's just one tactical way of doing it. But, if you really are interested in it, there's a book, it's called Traction. And what you'll understand is it applies to all businesses. This is not just a startup thing, right? Is any small business can adopt EOS, right? But what you're going to realize is that like it's very hard to go step by step through the process and just do it the way it says by the book. It doesn't have to be done by the book. You take what's good and you leave what you feel like you don't need to do or can't do or don't have the clarity of thought at the moment. You set that aside and be like, okay, well, at least I'm starting, right? It's all about getting started. And that's what, I tell other entrepreneurs, that are trying to start startups is like getting started is the writing the idea down, talking to potential customers, those things, right? That's just natural. But it's not always intuitive to know that that's the first step, right? The first step is just taking a step. It's just part of anything, right?
Yeah. And I'm loving everything you're saying. And like the Traction book, I couldn't reiterate more on how important something like that is, just to give your business that structure to follow. It's almost like you could spend all this time being a guide and learning from failing, not having that vivid vision, that legacy you want to leave, and steps to get there. And you'll learn along the way that it would have been a lot easier if you just took the advice or the knowledge from a book like Traction that just gives you that structure instead of having to learn it through failure. So just highly encourage every outfitter or fishing charter, just like go pick up the book, listen to it on Audible. And there's websites that are free to use that are super helpful with walking you through with just different forms and stuff like that kind of go along with the book. I'm enjoying the conversation around this like structure and like goal oriented stuff. I know we were going to move on to something, regarding marketing and stuff like that. But I think, man, like one thing that's been huge for our company, once we got past that stage, so people have got their vision, they know what they're working towards, they got their core values. Now becomes the real thing of like the numbers, like what are the goals? Like what are the trackables that we're trying to do? And I think like before we go into marketing, it's super important to understand what are those goals, those actual financial goals, the amount of people that are coming out on your trips, your total bookings you're trying to get for the year, whatever that might be, your rebooking rate. I think it's super important to understand that stuff first before you go in and try to come up with this great marketing plan. But if you don't know the numbers, the attribution tracking, all that stuff, then you're kind of just throwing your dollars out the window. You're just hoping something sticks. I do want to talk. We use I believe it's the OKRs that I think would be a great topic of discussion on like how we do that. And I know we don't have like a visual what I could do is probably figure out a way to make a PDF and put it in the bio or in our bio on our social media. People can download to use to try to start tracking their goals on an annual basis. Yeah, I'd just like to hear how you get to how they work, how you get to setting them, and how we break them down within our company and how it's applicable to outfitters.
Yeah. Well, the best way to start is to understand where OKRs come from. And where OKRs come from is basically it was invented by John Doerr, who was one of the early investors in Google, I believe. Investor, early employee, one of the two. And essentially Google has run off OKRs since the very beginning and still to this day. They use OKRs, right? OKRs stand for objectives and key results, right? And the funny thing is I actually have a PowerPoint that I prepared for the company tomorrow to explain OKRs. Like I literally have it. Like, I mean, it's not pulled up on my screen, but like the should I just pull it up? Like,
yeah, you can
I can screen share.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. I was hoping that one day we would get to like screen sharing, right?
Yeah. No, I think this is a great opportunity. Throw ourselves into the fire.
Okay, for those listening, you're not going to be able to see it, but I will make sure that we share a version of it that easy. Still loading. Okay. Sorry, that's the bottom of it. Okay. Why do OKRs matter? All right. Basic, simple. It aligns everyone in the organization towards a common goal, right? The book itself that is written on OKRs is called Measure What Matters, but it's true to what it says is, OKRs essentially are making sure that you're not focused on the wrong things. It's more important to understand what not to focus on than it is to know what to focus on, right? That removing all the things you shouldn't focus on is a big part of it, right? So essentially, what are they? Okay, OKR, right? Objectives are clear and ambitious goals that define what needs to be achieved. And key results are specific, measurable outcomes. This is the numbers, right? An objective cannot have a number in it, right? An objective is almost like a vision statement of what are you trying to accomplish? And this is a specific, measurable outcome from it. So you have an objective, and then if you hit these numbers, then you accomplish the objective, right? That's the main premise of it. So the way we use it is we have company-wide objectives, we have company-wide key results, and then we have department objectives and department key results, right? So essentially, I set the company-wide objectives. Okay, we want to be profitable and we want to have we want to grow revenue consistently. But as an example, I have the examples in the later PowerPoint, but I'm not exactly going to tell everybody that, exactly what our goals are. But that's just for confidentiality purposes. But where do we need to be is the question you're asking yourself. Okay. Setting that objective. An objective is a statement of, hey, this is a goal, like an ambitious thing, like a way of doing something. Like we want to be the biggest, think about it, it's like we want to be the biggest outfitter in Kansas. That's an objective, right? How do you become the biggest outfitter in Kansas is the key result. So what is the revenue target that you have to hit to be the biggest outfitter in Kansas? What do you know about the biggest outfitter in Kansas today that you're trying to unseat, right? And put that as the goal. And the thing about key results and objectives is they're supposed to be, I don't want to say ridiculously ambitious, but they're supposed to not be easily attainable. Like if you accomplish 50% of the key results of each key result, if you just hit 50% of your key results, then you're going to accomplish your objective, right? That's what you want it to be, right? So that's a great way to explain it. And then, of course, for us, you're not going to have this, but department objectives, maybe it's, okay, you have a company-wide goal and then you have goal like for the guides, like you want them to be, do a certain standard of going scout. Like we want to spend this many hours scouting, whatever you want to do. You don't have to do that. That's just one way of doing it, right? So without divulging our actual OKRs, the simple thing to do is to spend a great deal of time thinking about what matters to you, right? Like, it's so important that you spend the time to look at, okay, this is what I want to achieve. That's the objective. How do we get there? That's the key result, right? And, set them on an annual and quarterly basis, right? So, we do it during our annual planning sessions, but that's really important. And then to check in with them regularly. Like, as we're going to talk about changing things, it's like we don't check in with them enough. Like, the reason I had to make this presentation is to make sure that we're clarifying and explaining to everybody. And this is not something, and I'll just get this straight, this is not something that you should keep from anybody. The whole point of OKRs is to be transparent throughout the entire organization, right? So if your goal is to get somewhere, you want your guides to know where you want to get, so they have that level of service that you are expecting, and that the quality is there and associated, right? So I think a good example of like something that we took from EOS that, so our system is a combination of OKRs and EOS, right? But our weekly leadership team meeting. Have you ever been in an organization that didn't have the not the company, but the people that are actively a part of the organization? Like, for us, it's the leadership team, right? And we do all hands calls, right? But there's like 27 people, right? But as soon as we started meeting weekly and tracking towards the goals, right? Not just OKRs, but our weekly metrics, just tracking what's going on weekly. If you're not gathering your guides and setting up hour and a half to have a meeting, like we're talking a business meeting, like you show up 100% sober. This is all business, no fun. Like, okay, I say that, not no fun, but you know what I mean, right? Like, that's what you got to do, right? You've got to have a standard way of doing things. And just having one meeting a week is like, hey, let's set the priority for the week. You're going to be scouting over here. You're going to be scouting over there. Like, we've got this field, that field. Like, this is how many hunters we have coming in the week. Like, I tell you, like, almost like 99% of outfitters' problems can be solved by doing that one thing, right? Like, sure. Getting everyone together at the beginning of the week to set priorities, right? Prioritize and execute, right? Cover and move, right? These are things that are leadership principles, but it's not intuitive to know, like, hey, like, no one's telling you guys to do this, so I guess I can. But the reason I'm passionate about it, and I may sound like I get angry about it, it's just because I love running the business in a way in which I didn't know how to do this, right? I had to learn. I had to learn how to do this. Like, it's not intuitive. Like, and you can see the difference. Like, you can take someone who has started a business, like, Jonathan with Caprock is a great example. Someone who has started a business and then starts an outfitter, right? Totally different. Like, than someone who hasn't started a business, who worked for a business and decided to do this as their passion. It takes them a little bit longer to get to the point where it's a professionalized outfitter, right? It just takes them a little longer. So what I'm suggesting here is skip some steps. Like, and by skipping steps, I mean, take action on some of these things that could help improve the operations of the business. Right. And, essentially just put them in a spreadsheet so that everyone can access them, a Google sheet, right, where everybody can access them. Maybe you put them on the wall in the lodge. Hey, this is our core values and stuff. And now that we've talked about this, we're going to 100% create like 2 graphics of like how to do this for your outfitter, because it's just a great idea. I'm glad we stayed on this topic, Garrett. And you'll start to see things change. You will. Like, if you stick to the meeting, and the thing about the weekly meeting, don't show up late. There's rules. It's like, show up on time, meeting starts on time, there's a set agenda, and you go through the things that matter and you assign action items, right? And you solve issues, right? And issue solving is very simple. Identify the issue. Okay. That's number 1. Define it. What is it? What's going wrong? Okay. We didn't get this farmer locked down and there's a ton of birds on their field, right? And okay, so that's a problem. All right, where are we going to hunt? Are we going to traffic them? What are we going to do, right? And discuss. All right, hey guys, what do y'all think? Right? Have a discussion about it. Like, don't just have one like, this doesn't do any good if just one person says what we're going to do, right? Someone may do that at the end, right? Someone makes the executive decision at the end, and then assign action items. Who's going to do what? right? Who's doing what this week? And just taking that from a standardized process perspective, I mean, it's going to put you far and beyond your competitors. It just is, right? Because not everybody does it.
No, 100%. And I think, like, one, I love how passionate you are about this, and it's shown in our company with the organization. From when I came on, I think we had our first week where we had a meeting and a scorecard, and you go back and reflect. And I just want to talk about the impact that having the vision, the vivid vision, breaking it down into goals that were hard to achieve, but we were all working towards them together as a team, checking in weekly on how we're accomplishing those goals, just how much it has changed. One, the professional approach that each individual on the team has. I know for me personally, it's changed how I even approach work during the day, because now I know exactly what I need to be working on. And I know that I'm chipping away towards getting to this bigger goal. But overall, big picture, the change that it has had on the trajectory of the business, from seeing where we were at when we first started to now hitting numbers that at that time seemed impossible. It was like, how are we going to do this? And there's been things like, our legacy, our main focus shift. Things have changed. We've listened to outfitters and we've heard the issues from them and how we were going to solve them. And it changed some of that trajectory for us, and it changed it in a great way. But I just think having that, like you said, I would be surprised if like more than 5% of outfitters had some, and I feel like I'm kind of being like liberal on that number a little bit. 5% of outfitters hold a weekly meeting where they've got a vision they're working towards, where they have OKRs they're tracking. And I just think doing something like that alone would just change this industry as a whole if everyone started to adopt this method. And it would weed out those that aren't willing to do that. So definitely encourage outfitters to get more organized, to figure out what their legacy is. What is that going to be? And then start working backwards into, what do I need to do today, this week, to get towards that goal in 5 years? How am I going to get there? And what team am I going to have on board? And how am I going to encourage them and paint that vision for them to take action to help me get there? Because that's what they're doing. They're helping me get to that goal. And it's fulfilling their goals too. Like, it's so fulfilling for me when we set goals and I'm able to work with my team and we go and achieve that. And I see that in my team too. They get so pumped up about that. And then bringing the whole team in together and celebrating when you do achieve those goals has just been absolutely awesome. And I think, again, adopting that. And I've seen companies that are like ran professionally, outfitters specifically, and I've seen them scale fast. I'll use Whiskey Sleuths as an example. They are great when it comes to managing their finances, when it comes to like coming up with new things. I need to talk to them and say, do you have a vivid vision? How are you breaking down your goals? Because I guarantee you just that little bit, it's going to put the foot on the gas even harder for them. And you're going to see them scale even quicker. So yeah, do you have any like last words or anything you want to cover?
No, I mean, I think the best thing I can do is, explain like, well, why did we talk about all this? Well, the why behind we're here is because if in my mind, if one single guide or outfitter takes this and starts to use it, and it affects them and it affects their life, and then they have more time with their family because they're making progress and they have the time that they want to, like, that's the goal for me. Like, that's the goal for us. That's the goal for our company, is to change outfitters' lives, like, and perspectives on business in general, right? That's the goal, right? That's why we're here. We're definitely, I don't want you to think that we're just telling you what to do.
Yeah.
We're saying, hey, this is why this is something to think about, right? And that's my 2 cents on it. And I covered it in depth because from a tactics perspective, you need the tactics. Like, the strategy is like, have a standard way of doing things, whatever it is, right? But the tactics is, this is one way to do it. It's not the only way, but we're going to be putting out some resources that I can guarantee you that is going to help make this a little bit easier and explain it to you and give you an example of like, hey, this is what a goal or an OKR looks like for an outfitter, right? Hey, may even build it into the platform one day. You never know. So this was a good one.
Yeah.
Comment, subscribe. Please leave a review if you saw this. it means the world to us to just, understand like your story, how this potentially could have impacted you. And, we'll be back next week to talk. Well, we'll be in Montana, hopefully talking with the Road to 100 guys. And then, of course, Garrett's got some really good projects in the work. That's one of the reasons why we're going to Montana, but also the Outfitter playbook and what we're working on to kind of put all this into the secret sauce of what we're offering.
For sure. Yeah, we have a lot of big things coming, and I hope this podcast was impactful for you. So do everything that Logan said. And like you said, we'll see you next week, hopefully with the guys from Road to 100. If not, it'll be me and Logan again. We look forward to it, guys. Take care.